Hello, my name is Adaeze. You can call me your wellness buddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this community, we speak about wellness and life that is rooted in God and love. The focus is to help you live a life of wellness in abundance as a multi-relational being. You could be a mother, a father, you're in relationship with your dog, your friend, your family, even yourself. And that's what this is about, to help you be rooted in love and God and express who you should be fully. If today's topic resonates with you, like, share, comment, and do well to subscribe. And don't forget to share with someone who could benefit from this. Hello, Wellness Buddies. Thank you for joining me on this edition of the Wellness series. I am hoping that at least one person, just one person, would come out of this conversation and feel like their life has been changed forever and significantly. So today I'm focusing on friendship because whatever happens to you in life, a lot has to do with the friends you keep, the jobs you choose, the foods you eat, where you hang out, how you feed your family. So many things about your wellness, anxiety, depression, everything links to the people you keep relationships with. For some people, their families will be their friends, but friendship is that key word that I find when I speak to people and people come to me, oh, I'd like to eat better. And it starts from eating better and can you give me a meal plan? And I've realized it's not as simple as giving someone a meal plan, because the reason they're not eating well is probably because of the relationships that they have and how they are managing those relationships. So someone is maybe hanging out with the wrong friends, so they always binge eat because their friends are binge eating. It could be a situation where they are burnt out because they're always serving other people. And so even if I give you a meal plan, you put it by your fridge magnet, it looks really good. You've paid me, but you're never going to use those things because you're burnt out always from serving people, especially friends. So I've got with me here Chloe and Maple, who will join me in this conversation. They are not specialists in, like, they don't have a degree in friendship, but they are my very good friends. And I would say out of all my friends, I met Chloe 2010. I remember because that was when a mutual friend left the UK. And Maple would have been 2 years, 2 or 3 years later, maybe 2012 or something like that. And we kind of grew from being friends who would speak once a month, once in a while, hangouts, birthdays, to speaking of recent times, like nearly every day, at least once a week. So, and when I compare you to all my other friends, you've been part of my life in almost every season. Because I'm sure, like for you, you've got friends who maybe they're your friends when you're going through a really bad time in your marriage. You know, okay, this one I can get wisdom. You have friends who you hang out with for petty talk, different friends. However, you both have been like constant, just there in every phase. I can talk to you about almost anything. So you've given me that gift of friendship, and I don't see any other person who could be more qualified, even though my other friends might be listening and feel, I've got lots of best friends. But yeah, no favorites, but still you both really stand out. And I really admire how you handle your friendships, not just with me, but with others. And so that's why you're here with me. I'm not going to talk too much and just let the experts speak, the friendship experts. So, Chloe, I'll start with you. Can you, if someone was meeting you for the first time, because lots of people might
Okay.
just be meeting you for the first time, what are the key things you say they need to know about you?
Oh, um, I would say probably that I am a really caring person. I'm also very, very sensitive. Trying to think what else. I'm very creative. I suppose it's not something that I would lead with, but I think anyone who was going to know me on a more meaningful level would probably have to have a little bit of knowledge about my story, my background, because a lot of the experiences and things I've gone through have made me who I am. So if you don't know my story, you're not really going to understand me as a person.
Mm.
So I don't know. Is that? You want
Yeah,
more? Is that?
that's good. I mean, people are meeting you for the first time. You can't say everything on a first date. I'm sure with all the other things, well, we'll get to know more about you. And just to say, the art Chloe is sitting in front of, or the one behind her, she drew that herself. She created that. So yes, creativity at the peak. Yes. um. Well, yeah, and Chloe is studying to be a counselor. In fact, you're already a qualified therapist. It's just you're trying to do like the top up to earn more credentials. So
Yeah,
well done.
I'm
Yeah,
almost there.
yeah, almost there. So yeah, welcome and thank you for being here. Maple, I'm going to come to you. Who is Mr. Maple? As I see on your social media, Mr. Maple, Mr. Maple. Who is Mr. Maple?
Oh, okay. Well, taking a cue from what you said, if I'm meeting someone for the first time, they definitely don't need to know everything about me. So on the surface level, I would say Mr. Maple, it's someone who's quite energetic, somebody who loves life, somebody who is adventurous. And I can swing between being very playful and being serious, and it confuses some people in my life. You know, I think I have a good threshold for, um, tolerance. I tolerate things a whole lot. But one thing that gets me highly irritable and easily agitated, and I like people I'm meeting to know, especially if we're going to spend a bit of time together, is I don't know how to endure hunger. So once Mr. Maple is hungry, you are definitely not going to get the best of me at all because I get very edgy. Well, I've tried to suppress it, but it has refused to be suppressed. Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
that's good.
one more thing, I dance between being an introvert and being an extrovert. And people say, how's that possible? Well, the answer is I don't even know. But yeah, I find myself in those two zones at different points in time.
That's
Thank you for
interesting.
meeting me.
Thank you. I, actually, that's so true. And me too. I don't know. I think Chloe is kind of like I think hunger. A lot of people can relate. So you're in safe hands. Hunger
Yeah.
brings the best out of us. But just keep bit you've said about the introvert extrovert. I would say for the both of you, you could swing even if you're not aware of it. And that's the beauty of those who can keep good friendships, is that they know when to be silent, they can match energy levels and just
Mm-hmm.
blend into the place. And that's quite a strength a lot of people don't have, because it's like you're either an introvert or an extrovert. But that balance is key, and that's something even for your own wellness everyone needs to learn. So next one is for Chloe. So for you, I know you have a select few friends. So because when people hear us having this conversation, the assumption would be you have a lot of friends. Oh, they're very good with friends. Like my aunt told me once, she's like, oh, it's just that you're very lucky with friends. You're lucky, or you're just into friendships. But I know it's beyond that. I am intentional with my friendships. So looking at you, I'm thinking you don't have a lot of friends, but I know you love your friends really well. And I remember your wedding, you said your friends were your family. So
Yeah.
please share, you have a few friends. Is this intentional, or could you maybe have 30 and not burn out? Because remember, the topic for today is about being friends with people without and trying to how you could avoid burnouts in friendships, basically.
Yeah. It was interesting because it wasn't until I saw that question that I realized and thought, no, actually, I am selective about the people I let in to my sort of inner circle. And I think it's because the friendships that I do have, I feel like I invest so much in those relationships. So for me, if I had, I don't know, I'd like to say if I had 30 plus friendships that I would be that invested and that intentional, but I do think I would struggle. I think I would really struggle to give my best self because I would just be too exhausted or too fatigued to do that. So by being more selective, I feel like I can really give that attention and be intentional with those friendships. And I've seen those close friendships go on so many sorts of ups and downs and journeys and things. So that's a real privilege to see that and be a part of that. Yeah.
So it's not about how many friends, it's about like the quality of friendships, from what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess so. And I think like you both were sort of saying, I think I am naturally more introverted, but when I'm with the people that I feel comfortable with, I really come out of myself. And I think people often would assume that I'm out like extroverted because I am quite outgoing because I'm a caring person. So I'm curious about people and I want to know their life or their story. So I want to ask questions. But naturally in myself, there is a shyness and a bit of an awkwardness. So therefore, I observe, and it will take me a while for me to come out my shell. But usually, I would say all the friends that I have that are my close friends, I've said it's a bit like having a crush. Like I'll have seen them from a distance for a while before and be like, there's something I really like about that person. And I want to get to know them a bit more. And then I try to woo them and keep them as a friend. So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing. So that sounds very British to me, though. I remember my struggle when I came to the UK, because I was a really open person, and then I had this Nigerian background where you could just go up to someone and if they've got headaches, say, so why do you have the headache? Like, but in the UK, you just don't ask. You have to talk about the weather first of all, and talk about so many awkward things, and then gradually get into that close place. But yeah, that was a real culture shock for me because I would go to people directly and ask really straight questions because I would think I can accept that. But yeah, that observing and growing, that's really admirable. And people need to know they can do that. They've got the freedom to do that because sometimes people who don't have friends, that's one of the struggles. Oh, I don't know how to make friends. Well, you can look strategically and think, I really like this person, and then approach it like relationship and invest into it. So thanks for sharing that. So with you, Maple, you've got lots of friends. And in fact, you're on social media, you've got so many followers and so many friends. And I'm just thinking, like, how do you manage all your friendships? In fact, sometimes I observe on your Facebook when you have to like say thanks to people, and then on sometimes you have to write birthday messages. I'm like, everyone is special and they've done something. That's like so many people. So for you, how do you establish who your friend is? Because surely you can't be friends with everyone. But if everyone is your friend, how do you establish who your friends are? Is there like a, I don't know, hierarchy? Traits you look out for?
Well, I'm not quite sure if there's anybody in the world who, everyone has their friend. So, obviously, for those who are my friends, it means they are my circle. But like you said, there are many, there are a whole lot of them. But for me, it exists in layers, right? I have these mental circles that I have drawn, some sort of an onion ring, right? So different friends belong to different circles, and I like the term that Chloe used, which is inner circle. So I have those who are in the inner circle. So as we move from the outer circles all the way to the inner circle, the number drastically reduces. And this is because over the years, the word friendship is one of the words that has evolved over time. For every generation, different words take on different meanings. And so in our own time, friendship is one of those words that is changing meaning, because just by virtue of being connected with someone on Facebook, the person is called your friend.
Mm,
You may not have ever met that person before. You guys may have never done anything, whatever, just because a request was sent, the request was accepted, automatically the word is there, friends. Yeah, so I exist in that world where you have friendships based on digital connections and all of that. And then you also have friendship based on intersections. So some neighbors become friends while some neighbors stay as friends. And I'm coming from a background of always being in the midst of lots of people from primary school to secondary school to university, and I'm usually active, very active in communities as well. So everybody, so I like this person. This person has the right charisma and stuff. So I want to connect with this person. So all of that, makes up the broad nature of friendship that I have. However, when we go back to the original core meaning of the word friend, I actually don't have many friends. People don't believe me anyway. I don't know if you would believe me. But when we step back to the core meaning of friends, I really don't have many friends. And the reason is because most of these friends are people I wouldn't share lots of personal things with. And so you can't really call someone a dear or a close friend when you can't really share those things with them. So I don't know if that gets to answer the question, because some friends are just donated by circumstance, while some friends are actually are actually chosen. Like, I want to be this person's friend. This person wants to be my friend. And on that note, we know that okay, we're actually in a friendship. But some, acquaintances also that stay for a long time by default become friends. So you can imagine having an acquaintance for as long as 5 years or 10 years. It doesn't make any more sense anymore, still referring to the person acquaintance. But the relationship doesn't really go deeper than just an acquaintance. But how long would an acquaintance last? Well, I don't have an answer to the question. It just only feels awkward if someone remains an acquaintance for so long. But then, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. But what traits do you look out for?
Well, again, I look out for different traits in different friendships. Some, what brought us together is business. So the traits I look out for is within the context of business. So because our relationship is not solely business, we're also friends. However, the context of the friendship is still in the line of business. So I look out for traits that has to do with, will this person look out for my interest in business transactions? Will this person actually refer opportunities to me? Will this person be able to speak for me in the boardroom and in that negotiation if I am not there? So those kind of traits. And then do we have the same sort of values when it has to do with business? And of course, for personal friendships, does this person respect confidentiality? That's for me one of the biggest traits I look out for. Because over time, I've had to step back from friendships where we could actually just discuss freely as friends. And then the conversation we had as friends, ends up becoming, news, talk of town, and all of that. So next time, I wouldn't feel free to share anything personal with you. So when you ask, how are you? I want to weigh that question. Is this a question of courtesy? Because how are you has become a form of greeting. So this how are you, is it a greeting or a form of courtesy? Or is this my friend wanting to know how I'm faring? I always review it in my head before I respond to that question. How are you? So yeah, I have different traits for different blocks of friendships.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure if someone is listening to this conversation, even though we're focusing on burnout, these are sort of introductory conversations. So you get to know what your friendships are like, how you choose your friends. Have you got friends? Are you sort of what your values or your outlook is towards friendship? So we're just gonna dive deeper now. So Chloe, in your friendship journey, is there a time where you had to be separate from a friend? It could be like a change of mindset or misunderstanding, whatever, but you had that time of separation. And how did that like affect your wellness?
Yeah, I mean, I would say friendship breakups for me have been harder than any romantic breakup I've ever experienced. It just, I don't know, it's just so much harder because I don't know, there's something about friendship, well, to me anyway, that is more, there's an intimacy there, there's a trust. It's kind of, um it becomes like family, doesn't it? So when you're really good friends, or you've been with friends with somebody for years and you've gotten to know each other to a certain level, and I would say for me, that's where my faith and where God comes into like all of my life, all aspects of my life, but especially my relationships, is that I really feel that I trust God to lead my friendships and relationships. And I feel like in my heart of hearts, I would never, ever walk away from a friendship, because I'm a very, very loyal person. Like once you've got me in your corner, I will never leave. That's it. So the only time I will probably walk away is if I truly have no other option, one, or two, and I have definitely had this on a couple of occasions. God has really, really shown me, given me a sense, even dreams, that me and this person, for whatever reason, need to go separate ways. And I remember a season with one particular friendship where I really, really knew that God was telling me that me and this particular friend needed to go separate ways for a season. And I just resisted and resisted and was disobedient and was like, no, I sunk in my heels, because I was like, I cannot do this. I cannot, walk away from this friendship. But in the end, it happened by natural means. And it was a peaceful thing. It wasn't, divisive. But I think that's where, I suppose, to answer your question better, I would say that those occasions have been when, I don't know, maybe values aren't aligning so much anymore and you're doing each other more harm than good. I would say that's probably the time when friendships have needed, not necessarily, because I'm not really somebody that would ever close a door completely. So it would be more of a wanting to go separate ways in peace. Do you know what I mean? And wish the person well. So yeah.
I wish we could go deeper into that, but because of time we can't. Because you're saying it and it seems like really straightforward for a lot of people. Their friendship breakups could be really messy and ugly. And it's not always as simple as, well, it wasn't simple, but it's not like God is speaking and then later we parted simply and it was in good terms. Lots of people, and you think, but I thought you were really close. Why are you separating, with such pain?
Yeah.
However, I think what I'm drawn from that is the God factor. I guess that would be the factor that would save you from the mental breakdown, because in your heart that God was in it all along. So that makes a difference. So thank you for sharing that. Maple, do you have anything to add? Because you seem like you really wanted to say something when she was talking.
No, no.
Okay.
I was just learning. Yes, I was just learning and inspired by how, precise the management of friendships. I mean, the depth of commitment. Because Chloe said something that it has to take an extreme thing to happen for her to walk away from friendships, and that's not something you hear readily in today's world. So I was just inspired, not like I had anything to say.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's a cancel culture, and they, sometimes I'm thinking people want better friendship, and they might be having burnouts because they are giving much more than they're getting, whatever the reason. But we are in a period where, if you can just, like what you said earlier about social media, it's so easy to unfriend someone and cancel them from your wall, and you don't get to hear from them. So people who live in the internet world or the social media world don't realize that you can't do that in real life. You don't just walk away because someone did something, or you don't just shut them out completely, no communication. Well, I've got two brothers, so I wouldn't mention which one of them, but one of them came to me, wanted to end this relationship, and I said, well, you've got to end this relationship, but you need to tell the person why and tell them you're ending it. And it sounded really absurd, because the natural thing to do is, they've been awful. I see it in influencers' pages. They'll be like, as soon as I had this conversation with this person, I blocked them. And so is that
Mm.
passion that is in friendship, even if you want to block them, if they've been your friend, not a random person, at least give them that conversation. And so that's one thing I'd add, like, because I know Chloe well enough to know that she wouldn't just walk away. But the layer she's not talked about is what that process looks like. It's
Yeah.
a lot of compassion, a lot of communication. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna come to you, Maple. How do you manage friendship as a married man? Setting boundaries, I guess separating friendship. Um, I guess, how do I say this? So separating. Let me give a background. So with me, I learned not to call anyone best friend because I've got a lot of best friends in their own rights, in their own different ways. So, and I find that if you celebrate someone a particular way, another friend could get jealous. And so when you have quite a number of friends, the challenge becomes, how do I relate with them individually and make them feel loved without feeling like you love the other person more, if there's a thing like that, because we know it exists. So it's two parts. It's separating friendship from friendship and separating friendship from interfering with your marriage.
Okay, that sounds like Harvard standard question. Okay, so it seems like two questions in one: jealousy in friendship, and then managing friendships as a married person. Did I get you correctly?
Yes. And I want to ask Chloe that as well. Just bear that in mind, Chloe. Hold that thought.
Okay, so for me, I think for the first one, I'm not quite sure how it works. I don't know if it's a gender thing or if it's a me thing, but I can't recall having issues with one friend being jealous and all of that stuff. So I honestly don't know, and I wouldn't want to answer for the sake of answering when I can't recall an experience. And perhaps it has to do with the way my friendships are formed and the way my friendships evolve over time. Because, like I said, my friendships are in compartments. There are different things that brings us together, and then some move beyond that point. Now, but I don't have friendships where there is this constant demand and all that. I mean, like today, a friend reached out to me, a female, and really needed to talk to me about something. And when she had thought about it, I was the only person she could, reach out to and open up to with regards to what she's struggling with. And we haven't talked in a very long time. And that's where some of my friendships are. We've not talked in a very long time. Social media maybe helps us to keep in touch. You put something up on WhatsApp, I see it, I like it, you know that okay, yeah, he noticed and all that. But we don't really get to like talk and stuff. But when we need to do something or whatever, we reach out. So I have those friendships. I also have the friendships where we're in touch more frequently. Maybe within every month, there is no month that passes by we're not in touch. And I also have those ones that are like weekly, right? And even those ones that are pretty much like daily. So it differs according to the need per time. There are friends that I reach out to at a certain point because I remember, okay, this is my friend who, and we always pick it up. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that's how it is. I can't speak for in a general sense. So for me, there are friendships that we pick up, at any point and just get along with it. So the issue of jealousy and all that, I haven't experienced it, because at the time you needed me, I'm there. At the time I needed you, you're there. And if you are not there or I'm not there, we also know that it's for one reason or the other, and we give each other that benefit of doubt and extend grace. So I really haven't experienced that. And then coming to the other side, which has to do with how do I manage friendships, as a married man, there are some dichotomies that I don't put in place because sometimes I try to place it in my head. Even if I'm not married, for example, and you're going to call me by after a certain time in the night, you should know that Maple will most likely be asleep or maybe he's working on
Mm.
something. So the same courtesy you will extend to me, as though you know that, okay, it's the same courtesy you would extend knowing that, okay, is married and I'm not sure is available. Even if it's an emergency, you want to be sure first and stuff. So for me, I think it's a thing of personal orientation, a thing of personal values. You know, relationships come with defined boundaries, right? So with your siblings, there are boundaries that, you know, is inherent in that relationship with your siblings, with your parents, you know, and then even with friendships, there are friends that can come into my bedroom, and there are friends who know. I don't need to say don't come into my bed. They won't even attempt to come because the nature of that friendship doesn't give them permission or access to my bedroom. I have friends who don't come to my house, and I have friends who can come to my house, open the pot, serve the food, and eat.
Mhm.
So this, I think maybe because of the way I form my friendships, I'm not quick to go into serious, intimate friendships. I mean,
Hmm.
this you are witness to that. Imagine how many years it has taken us to build our friendship, and that's how it is with me. Actually, I don't jump too quickly into serious, close. It takes time, and so over that time, the boundaries are also being established. So I have instances where I have had to step back from friendships. Forgive me for connecting it to Chloe's question, but I have times when, you know, I've have to like step back, and that's because you're demanding of me things that I think should be left to time. When things tend to happen so quickly at the formative stage of the friendship, and I'm saying I don't feel comfortable with this. I met a supposedly new friend here in Ireland, and the friend made an offer to me, and I didn't feel comfortable with the offer. And so from the point I said, I really don't feel comfortable with this, I would have to decline the offer. The person got upset and blocked me on WhatsApp.
Mm.
We didn't discuss about it, whatever. Instantly, the person blocked me, and that friendship came to an end. I felt bad about it, but again, it's still in the formative stage. So I would rather that it had ended at that point than we had veered off and then it ends much later when I've invested way too much. And from my own Christian point of view, God has his own way of cutting off certain friendships, and I shouldn't fight to hold on to it. So long as I was open-minded enough, compassionate enough, free spirited enough, willing to take feedback and all of that. If it ends, then so be it.
Hmm. Hmm. So the unsaid things both of you are drawing at, it's it seems really straightforward to you and very simple, but these are really core skills people need to learn. Knowing
Mm.
when to let go, knowing when to step back. I
Mm.
can tell you the amount of people who I talk to in coaching who would be like, "Oh, I just couldn't say no," or yeah, I have this family member who always does X and X in my house and I can't tell them to stop,
Yeah.
or someone always asks this of me, come for sleepovers. They are burnt out. They don't
Yeah.
want that sleep, but they can't find the words to say, I don't want you to sleep over. Their friendship where they've overstayed. So, but the key things you're saying, which I'm hoping people would learn from, is for you to avoid burnout, is for you to be honest with yourself
Yeah.
and within your friendships and tell yourself, okay, this friend in question shouldn't be in my bedroom. So if they made it to my bedroom, how do I get them out? Yes, you can learn that by reading books, coaching, whatever, um, training yourself, setting more boundaries, whatever you want to do. However, one thing I'm picking from both of you, and you're saying it with ease. I just step back. Like nobody just people don't just step. But yeah, it's commendable, and that's why you're here today having this conversation with me. So, Chloe, because I know this could be common for women, it's interesting I asked Maple, but is there like, do you have to deal with friendship jealousies?
I think I have, but it's one of those weird things where I've experienced it, but I don't really understand it rationally because that's not how I work. If I
Mm,
love I love love and I want to share that. So like if I love you, Adaeze, then I'm not going to be like, right, Adaeze's all mine. I'm going to be like, whole world have Adaeze, because she's so amazing that I want you to have a bit of her as well. And so I don't, that isn't really something that my brain really understands, but you know, I know that's something that can be a struggle. And I think it's like conversations we've had about how God doesn't have favorites, but he loves us individually. And I think with my friendships, in one-to-one in private, I love in a very individual way, because I try to get to know the person and what their traits are and what their preferences are. And so I feel like I'm quite personal in that way. But if I was in a group, I wouldn't be, I suppose I would be mindful of everybody in that space, not to be too, I don't know, show favoritism to one person over another. And I think that's a tricky, I think you as a mum can probably understand what I mean by that more than people who don't have children. You have to love each individual.
Jealousy.
Yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
tricky one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to say with when you were both speaking then, what came to mind is two things. It's boundaries and it's communication. I think those are the two things that I think for me have been really, really important. But again, that, like you said, that's so much easier said than done. I am not the same Chloe that I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. Like I remember we've had so many conversations where I've been that person saying to you, Adaeze, I don't know how to say no to this person, and I'm really struggling with this, and how do I do this? And I would say to that person, it's developing your relationship with yourself. It's building your own self-esteem. It's building your confidence. Yeah. And we've had so many interesting conversations about not just setting boundaries with other people, but setting boundaries with yourself. And I think when you get to a place where you can own, okay, this is a boundary that I need. So I know that I need, I don't know, to have the time in the evening with my husband on my own. The rest of the world needs to be shut out. Once you've made peace with that, then you can communicate that to other people and say, all my friends or rest of the world, I love you, but I need to have that time for just myself and my spouse. And things like that. But I think it starts with the relationship you have with yourself.
Thank you so much. That is so key. Relationship with yourself. The book I'm writing on self-love, that's basically what that is. Like if you don't sort yourself out, you would always be like a burden to other people. And then you perceive other people being burdens when they are not really being burdens. It's you who needs to set that boundary. It reminds me of someone who came to me and said she had issues with her mother-in-law, and mom-in-law was quite outspoken and did all kinds of things to her and would insult her. And so she said, I don't know how to stop her from doing it because my husband is not defending me. And one of the things I remember telling her is, how would you like to be spoken to? It felt like I've just been telling you about my problems, and then you're asking me, how would I like to be spoken to? And then so when she narrated how she would like to be spoken to, I'm like, so when you're not spoken to like that, how would you go about it? If someone, not your mother-in-law, someone else was to speak to you about that, like that, what would you do? And we managed to get to a respectful solution, but she needed to voice it out herself, like, this is how I want to be spoken to. And if I'm doing something wrong, this is how I want to be spoken to. So yes, you knowing your boundary is so important. So we're just going to go a bit deeper again. If someone is experiencing burnout in friendship, Chloe, what would be your advice to them?
First of all, I probably would be sad, because I feel like friendship is the one place that ideally you get refreshed and you get your cup, poured into. So if somebody's feeling burnt out in their friendships, I would question whether those are the right friendships, maybe, or the health of those friendships. Because for me, I mean, there have been difficult moments, don't get me wrong, like there are in any relationship, but for the most part, those are the places I go. If you're truly feeling burnt out from your friendships, it might be time to, I don't know, if you're a Christian, pray about it. If you're not, maybe just take some self-reflection, think about the friendships that you're feeling burnt out in, and think about whether those friendships are ones that are good to continue, or whether it's time to make a change, or maybe it's a case of overexerting yourself and you're trying to pour so much into too many relationships, in which case it might be. I definitely have had seasons where I've had to say to friends that I've got nothing to give at the moment. I'm really at capacity. You can have me, but I haven't got anything else to give, whether it be finances, whether it be time. I can't get a gift or whatever. But if I'm enough, then you can have me, but that's about it. And the best friendships have been the ones that have not been like, well, that's not good enough. They've been the ones that have been like, well, I accept you, come as you are. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Again, I hear the boundaries, I hear the communication. These are the big words to go with it, but it's as simple as just being honest with yourself first, and then being honest with the people who are your friends. Um, I know that sometimes someone could be trying to talk deep to me. I'm that friend who would be like, I'm sorry, like I'm shattered. I cannot physically take that in. And it's painful, it's disappointing because you want someone to listen. But then people honor and respect that honesty because you've been able to say it. When you then try to listen when you know you cannot listen, then obviously there'll be burnouts. If you try to buy a birthday present you can't afford, over time your finances would hit you and you would think it's the other person's fault. But no, you order that gift and you send them that present. Or things like attending social events for friends. You don't have to be in every social event, but also sensing which one is really important to that friend. Because lots of people would not invite you to a wedding like 2 days before. So if someone is really special to you around that wedding, you don't plan other things because you're going to get burnt out. So thank you for sharing that. That communication is so key. So Maple, have you gotten burnt out in friendship, if you remember, from people's needs and wants?
Well, I know you're doing the
How did you recover? Yeah.
well, I know you're doing the asking. Well, permit me to ask what burnout actually means. I want to be sure that my understanding of it is actually the context for the conversation, so I don't go off tangent. So, what do you mean by burnout, if you don't mind?
So burnout is what it is. It's mental breakdown. It's you thinking like I can't do this anymore. So it's majorly for your mental health. That's what this is about majorly.
Okay.
And also the
Okay.
burnout on the flip side is burnout of I don't even want to have friends anymore. So what we're hoping to achieve at the end of today is someone to come out of it and think, actually friendship is good and I don't have to be burnt out, and these are the ways I can manage my friendship. So burnout, think more mental more than anything else, I guess.
Okay. Well, I can't recall being burnt out, in terms of in the mental sense. However, I've been stressed out, so maybe that's why I asked. So maybe I don't know. You are the wellness expert, so I end up learning from you. But maybe I've been stressed out
Yeah,
from
that
certain
is
friends. Yeah,
yeah.
I've been stressed out from certain friendships, and typically, for example, I get stressed out if there's something wrong. Either I sense it on my own that there's something wrong and I ask what's the matter, or you reach out and I ask what is it, and you go on and on not saying what is it. I get really worried. It begins to affect my own emotions, and you're just not saying what exactly it is. And so that happened. That happened a few days ago. I had a very long day, and then had an interview that was fixed no, an induction slash training that was fixed for evening. So it ran from 6 p.m. all the way till 9 p.m. And then by 9 p.m. we're not done. We finished about 9:15. And then we now had to do a tour around the company premises where we're going to work. By the time we were done with all of that, it was to 10 p.m. in the night. I was tired, I was hungry. And then, of course, the training was so long. And then I had to also write some sort of exam at the end of the training, which I was not informed. It was right there at the training, midway into the training, we're told, by the way, you're going to write a test. And the ventilation in the space was also poor. So I was totally tired and exhausted. And then on my way home, a friend messaged, in a worrisome tone. And then I kept asking what the matter was, and throughout that night, and the person kept sending these what do you call it, WhatsApp emojis of tears and crying and all that. I was very disturbed. I was worried. I struggled with sleeping. Like, I kept asking different questions. Did this happen? The person will respond no, but not say what it was. I kept trying to figure out what it could be. I asked, the person would say no. Did this happen? This no. And so it happened throughout the entire night. I was so exhausted and all that. So before I went to bed, I now sent a message to the person and said, see, I've had a very long day. And as a matter of fact, all the while I've been chatting with you, I'm still on my way back home. The weather was good during the day, but it's night and it's even cold, and my jacket is not even thick enough and all that. I'm really tired and I'm not sure what it is, but I won't be able to keep asking. I'm going to bed. So by the next day again, I picked it up and continued all the way. Still no answer and all that. It was towards night of the next day, the person finally now told me what it was. Her elder sister passed on that day. That day that I was missing, her other sister passed on. And the other sister was in her own house and started complaining about her head and stuff. And then they took her to the hospital and she died at the hospital. So immediately I had to set aside, my own whatever. Even though, yes, I was getting stressed out and all of that. But then it's grief. And this is the closest relative of this person that is passing on. Right. So I just decided I had to just give that, yeah. But in other instances, certain friends just make me go on and on asking what the matter is, and it stresses me out. Honestly, so I just shut down. I kind of like disconnecting and all that because I can't focus on anything properly. I cannot be very productive if I know there's an issue and I don't know what it is. And I have to keep poking and poking and asking and asking. So, yes, I've experienced it. So, what I've learned now is I let you know what I'm also dealing with. I usually did not like that idea of somebody comes to me with my problem. I used to think that I should soak it all in, listen to other people's problems, all of their troubles and all that. But I realized that it weighs me down, it stresses me out. So if you come with it now, and I have a whole lot I'm also dealing with, I no longer feel guilty. Yes, that's the word. That feeling of saying, I understand what you're dealing with. I really, really sympathize with you and all that. But at this time, I will not be able to help you in this regard or in that regard because of I am limited by my own issues and challenges as well too. So for me, in those instances, yes, I've been stressed out. And what I've learned is to communicate, let them know that I'm also dealing with stuff. Because if I don't, or if I did, like I think you mentioned it at Daisy, I would think that is the person's fault. But the person didn't know that I was also dealing with an issue. So if I don't communicate, how do they know? But I also need to mention that there have been instances where I communicated, but I don't know if I would say they didn't understand or they were being inconsiderate or being insensitive and just kept, pushing at it, pushing at it, and eventually it hits me as well too. So I've had instances where I think I didn't manage it well. Yeah, but what I've learned from all of that is I communicated so that it's on record. I told you I also had issues and stuff that I was dealing with. Lastly, when I was having intense classes, I have people who tried, friends who try to reach me, and I'll tell them that I have loads of coursework and all of that, and I really don't have that much time to spare. I would appreciate if you could leave me a message or a voice note. As difficult as it is, I could still make time to listen to a voice note. But in terms of having a phone call, I'm new to the system here. I have to catch buses, I have to navigate the code, but they just wouldn't understand. They felt I was being too busy for them. And a few of them, what, don't bother, and they never bothered, to reach out anymore. I used to feel bad, but I don't know, maybe let me know if I was wrong. But honestly, right now, if I'm really not in that place to help you and I tell you and you feel offended and you withdraw, I don't feel bad anymore. So maybe if that's wrong, you let me know, let me confess and pray for forgiveness.
The priests. I am master of telling people when I can't do things. So like I'll be the wrong person as well. And I know we over the years, so we might be the wrong people to tell you you're doing something wrong. Because that's the right thing to do, really, isn't it, Chloe?
Can I add something to that? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
when you were
Yes, please.
speaking there, Maple, the word that came to my mind was expectation and transparency. And I think those two things for me are so, so important because burnout, that is something I have got experience with. And I think that usually comes from a period of over striving and like trying to work too hard, but without either gaining too much too little in return, or there not being clarity. And I think so. So if we're talking about friendships, I suppose where there's been burnout for me, kind of similar to what you're saying, is where there's been a lack of clarity about what the expectations are about that relationship. Or maybe I've thought that it's an inner circle friendship, but for them, I'm actually an acquaintance. And so there's this mismatch of expectations. And so then I've had to sit with myself and go, hang a minute, what am I expecting from this person? And is that realistic? Or vice versa? Are they expecting from me this, this, and this when actually I can't meet that need? And then I think probably this is where it does take courage, is to be transparent and try to have that conversation with yourself and maybe with the other person to say, and not always is that going to work, because the other person might not be willing to meet you where you're at and have that honest conversation. And if that's the case, there's nothing you can do, but you can take the lead. You can try and say something along the lines of, can we try and have a transparent conversation and just check what page we're on? Are we acquaintances? Are we, where does this sit? And I like what you said about, about being honest, which I think takes some level of vulnerability, but from a place of strength, to say, I don't know, I've got a lot on my plate right now. I've got this going on. I've got my studies or whatever it might be. And just being honest. And I think, like you said, Adaeze, people generally respect that. When they know, sometimes they don't, but usually they'll hear that and go, okay, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. Thank you for adding to that. Yeah, because people, the thing is with humans, even when you give feedback, naturally you're raising your hands, Maple, but let me did you raise your hands?
Yes, I did, because I just remembered something that happened in December. On a particular day, I had 3 friends who had social events. 2 were burying a parent, and it was happening in 2 different towns outside of town. Of course, River State, so outside of Port Harcourt, 2 different places, not like somehow close. 2 different towns, opposite directions of each other. And then what was happening inside of town, and that was, I think, was it a wedding or something? So I attended the one that was happening inside of town. I had issues with my leg at the time, so I was going for massage sessions as well too. So traveling, of course, would have put stress on the leg. But aside that, I couldn't have been at those 2 events on the same day at 2 different ends. So I sent messages to my friends having these events outside of town. One responded and appreciated the fact that I was thoughtful to have even sent a message. He had to deal with so many other guests and all that. And I mean, I was able to. And the other one was upset, was unhappy, and did not respond, to the message. So the question is, I was honest in both cases, but there was one who did not appreciate the honesty. So how do you deal with that? Oh, sorry, you're the one asking the questions.
No, you can ask me. So what's your question?
I just asked the question, how do you deal with when the honesty is not appreciated?
I guess you can't really deal with that. What I always tell people is this: meet people where they are and try your best. Like I try my best to evaluate my friendships. If I feel that I'm becoming an acquaintance to you, and sometimes it hurts because like you, Chloe, my relationships are very special to me. And so when I become an acquaintance, I go back and have that conversation with myself, especially if I've tried to reach out and I've tried to do all the things a good friend should do. So the moment you realize if you're number 7 in someone's life, be content with 7 and stay right there, and you'll be very happy. The moment you try to go into 1, and the unseen things, because we are spiritual beings, the unseen things is you might be trying to force it and think, I really want to be 1. But at that point in time, in that season, what you need to be 7. You will not be there to go through every battle your friend goes through. It doesn't make you less of a friend. And that's why, personally, for me, how I choose my friends is value alignment, how we connect on a deeper level. I hardly judge you by what you can give me, because if we go by that, a lot of times people will let us down. So for me, if someone does not appreciate my honesty, then it might mean that that period, it's not meant to be, and that's fine. I come from there with that clear conscience that I gave my best and I met you where you were. So yeah, I always sense who you are to people. Obviously, in marriage, the laws are slightly different. If you feel you're number 8 in your husband's or wife's life, please try to be number 1, right? But with friendship, you've got to respect that, because just the way we're talking about it, because humans are not tools. We talk about compartments and all of that. It's all good from your mental perspective. But for that person, they might be thinking Maple is my number 1, and for you, that's your number 7. Do you see? So if they can just appreciate being number 7, then they wouldn't have any issues with you. Is when they are poking and wanting to be 1, and you've set these boundaries. So I think for me, my biggest takeout from this is just be honest with your own self. Where are you with your friendships, with how you perceive other people to be? And then sometimes it might be the case that you might be their number 7. I say this, sorry, their number 1. I say this because of my friendship with Chloe. So sorry, I'm going to pull that in just to make it more real. there will be seasons in our lives where I would be giving, like, I feel like I'm giving my all based on my capacity. But she might not think that, not because she can't empathize with my situation or any of that. But it's very clear that, there is a mismatch of the expectation, right? So there's interpretation. So whatever you get at any point in time, especially in a place of trust, just be content with that. And then if there's a misalignment, you can have that conversation Chloe talked about, like, happening. I feel like, we've had those conversations. I feel like you're not giving me 100%. And then I give more context, and then there's more understanding. Same as you, I'll be like, I don't feel like, I feel like you're silent, and this is what I'm going through, and that's why I've not been saying much. So people just need honesty. And
I'm going to put my hand up now.
Yeah. We're rounding off anyway, because we've been talking for, I think, 50 minutes. I didn't want to go past an hour. So I'm just going to round up with you telling us what you want to tell us, advice for people who are experiencing burnout or they're not very sure about friendships anymore. And then obviously Maple as well. You could also just round up after Chloe. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I think I've realized that it's important to kind of view friendships as similar to dating in a way. And I think going back to the question that you asked, Mabel, that if people can't handle your honesty, that's really good information. Take it as information. And I'm not saying it's healthy to test people, but I've definitely had seasons in my life when I've been really, really limited about what I've been able to give of myself or resources or time or whatever it might be. And I've had to be honest about that. And then I've had to see how the chips fall. How does this get taken? And that's been a real test of friendship and the level of friendship. Because I'm not saying you have to cut someone off, for any small reason. But if somebody can't take your honesty, that's information of like how deep you go with that relationship. So I would say to someone in that situation, just learn from that. Use it as good information to see, how close you are to that person.
Yeah, true, because your true friends would understand. They might not take you well at first because honesty, someone gave me feedback once. No, it wasn't feedback. This was my self-reflection. I went to someone's house. She hosted me. And at the end of the day, she kept saying, "Oh, I've got this throbbing headache. I've really got headache." And so I said, "Oh, would you want to take a break then?" And she said, "Yeah, I'd love to take a break when my husband is back, in a few weeks. I'd love to have like a week off and whatnot." And I was there thinking, "Oh my gosh, she's got this headache because of me. She's got this headache because of me, because she's hosting me." But the thing is, it made me see what honesty can do to the other person without being told. Because when you're honest and very clear with your thoughts, the other person could internalize it and get hurt by it. Like, I can't make it, oh, maybe I've got too many events, maybe I've got too many issues. That's why they can't attend this hospital appointment. In that moment. But the thing is, me being me, because everyone is not me, I was able to step away and be like, this is not about you. Yes, you might be part of her headache, but she was happy to host you. But this is a mom. There are more complex things happening in her life. It's just not about you. So don't make it about you. And so I was able to extend that grace to her honesty, because she could have said, "Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, have a good night." But she said, "No, I've got a throbbing headache." And she was hosting me. So, yeah. Maple, final thoughts?
Oh, okay. For me, I think final thought would be to get. I think we need to learn to give benefit of doubt. A lot of times, what we think or what we perceive is not what the reality is. Is not what it is. Certain friendships and relationships doesn't revolve all around us. So we need to give benefit of doubt so that it opens us up to other possible perspectives. And then secondly, will be to communicate. The first point of communication, which is to share what we think, what we feel, do it with grace and love on one hand. And then on the other hand, the second point of communication, which is to listen, right? And to listen, with understanding and compassion, so that way it's not combative. That way there is a proper chemistry, in the friendship. We get to understand the other person better. The other person also gets to understand us, and hopefully it works out. I don't think it works out all of the time, because we are different journeys when it comes to giving feedback and listening and all of that. Yeah. So some persons may not have gotten to that point where they appreciate your honesty. So you were honest, but it's not appreciated. Maybe later on they'll get to that point. I've had friendship that had to slow down or pause, and then years down the line we picked up and it was a lot better because we had all grown. We see things from a different and better perspective. So I think on that note, I would say give it time. If it's really not working, sometimes we just need to give it time. Don't bring the hammer, just give it time.
Yeah, don't block the person. Yeah. And if you're listening and you blocked me, please unblock me. But yeah, thank you so much, both of you. I feel really enriched by this conversation. I'm really glad you could come, Maple, from all your business and school commitments. You're studying, I really feel honored. And so for Maple, he's got this business branding masterclass. attended. In fact, Chloe, I would recommend it. So when you're ready, I did that, and that's where Wellness Buddies from. Like, it really gave me insights as to what a business brand is, or what I like, my personal brand, who am I, and how I want to present myself out there. So I'm going to put the link for you to click and just please, no, I'm asking you to. I'm not begging you. You want it, just trust me on this. It's fantastic. You will have a wonderful time with. He's such a great teacher as well. So yeah, and Chloe, I asked Chloe, do you want me to tell them anything? She didn't say anything, but Chloe is a therapist,
I have
and
nothing to advertise just yet.
yes, so you can go on our waiting list. We're going to create one.
That's a good
Waiting
idea.
list.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're one of the most compassionate people I'm privileged to know, and I'm glad to have you in my corner. So if you sit next to Chloe, whether you're from African background, whatever background you are, she can you're very good at mirroring people. You can meet them where they are. And so I cannot wait for when you start like showing us out there that you're a therapist, and people can really glean into that and enjoy this gift that God has given you so beautifully. So thank you, and I'll see you on the other side.